Hello and welcome back to the Magical Story of Us podcast. We are your hosts, Britton and Carolee Beckham, and we have a magical story to share. Last episode, we sort of been giving the overview, and we started in 2019, 2017 era, and kind of talked about our evolution of leaving Mormonism and then confronting our infidelity in a deeper way. And then, we'd gone through some emotional re-education. Now, this story is called The Magical Story of Us, and it truly is magical. And in this overview, we're sort of trying to encapsulate the whole journey. And so we're leaving out a lot of the really magical details. But we'll brush through some of those and we'll save them for later episodes. For this particular, for this episode and the last one, this two-part overview, what we really want to do is cover just the depth, the kind of the overview or the breadth of the experiences that we went through to showcase just the massive amount of changes that we were sort of confronting and undergoing during this like 4-year period of rebooting our relationship, awakening, and gaining a new emotional intelligence and healing infidelity. So,
Yeah, they're kind of like our timeline, a snapshot of the timeline of the healing.
Yeah, and it was, so I think where we left off was around the end of 2021, and I had just gotten back from a Joe Dispenza in the summer, a week-long advanced retreat with Joe in Denver, actually. And I traveled back to to Utah and went from this really big high immediately back into deep healing work. And it was hard. I remember that moment. And we talked about how your healing and my healing was equal. It was this approach or this incident of infidelity, this pattern that had sort of plagued our relationship, wasn't something that just was I needed to heal. There was information, there was patterns, and there was shadow work that was coming up for her equally that had been a catalyst in all of it. And so she recognized the need to heal regardless of whether or not we continued in our relationship.
Exactly, yeah. So that, if I recall correctly, the last episode, the part 1, this is the part 2 of, basically ended with you choosing to leave your career. Like that transition from the end of 2021 into 2022.
2022. And the choice to leave my career was really hard. It took me about a year to fully integrate before I made the choice. And
that should probably be its own.
It really should, because
Yeah.
it was a beautiful thing, and there was a lot of energy that needed to be released, and a lot of faith that needed to be like practiced and embodied. And but anyway, so let's just start around December of 2021. We had did we covered the MDMA? Yeah, we covered the MDMA experience, right? I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah, let's just start with December.
So let's start with December of 2021, and in December of 2021, this basically December 1st, I was no longer employed and was I'll give a little bit of background. One of the reasons that made this easier was that, or even possible, frankly, was that we had in 2020, and this is where I'll just mention, this is why the story's so magical, and everybody's story is going to be so magical as they step into their own journey, is that there are certain things that where time doesn't make sense. In 2020, right as COVID hit, the stock markets all tanked, and I wasn't in that mode of fearfulness around the stocks and the coins, but everything tanked. And I was sitting at my phone. I remember it was probably mid-March, maybe March like 15th or something like that, around there, 2020. I get this text message on my phone or a notification from like Robinhood, and it was like Ethereum dropped down to $50. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go buy a whole bunch of this. And Bitcoin was down. Everything was so down. And I just knew it was going to come back up. And so I was in a place where I could just throw in some money. I wish I would have thrown in like 10 times more, but that's a whole, like, you got to let go of the past, right? So anyway, I bought a whole bunch of Ethereum and Litecoin and some Bitcoin, and um, and that turned into a big piggy bank by 2021, like really big. And so I was like, okay, well, I can make this choice to leave my career. We got a nice padding in the bank, or not really in the bank, but in coin. And what's funny was, um, I think it was like summer of 21 when it all peaked out to like its most value. And I lost like half of it by the time that I left my job. Like within a month or two, like half of that value had been decreased, and it was like, wow. But I still had enough that I felt comfortable. Um, and so I was like, but at the same time, I was like going through my own shadow work of like, oh, this is so hard. Like, what am I doing? I left my career. I'm jeopardizing everything. Technology moves so quickly. If you're not continually educating yourself, you basically just get left behind. And so, um, I was questioning myself. I was double questioning myself. I was worried that I'd made a really bad decision in, the security of myself and my family. And I entered a deep depression in the end of December and most of January of 2020. Well, end of December 21 and then January of 22. And so I'll basically say that, like, what happened here was something really important. I had a block of energy that was bringing me down. Like, whenever you're feeling depressed, whenever you're feeling really down, it's just like weighing on your brain and your emotions and your mind all the time. This is just something within you saying you need to unblock, you need to unblock, you need to let go of something really big in your life. And I had an opportunity to go to a small men's retreat down in Moab, Utah, at the very end of January. And because I was feeling so down, it was like really even hard to make the decision to go. But I wanted to offer some of my sound healing to a group of men. It was just like a beta men's group, so it was not beta, like it was a guy doing a beta test of his men's group, beta male. Um,
There's something funny about that.
There is something funny about that.
Keep
But no,
going.
we were, it was a beta test for this men's group. And so I had been given a book, actually connect back to Joe Dispenza, by my brother-in-law, and he suggested I read this book called The Illusion of Money. And while I was at the men's group driving back, I started the book and started listening to it, and that on that drive, something hit me. I'd gone to the men's group. It was 3 days. Moab, we did some hiking. I cleared my mind, my emotions, everything. I was just connecting to be present. And after that was over and my drive home, I was listening to this chapter in the book, and something hit me, and it was about choosing into yourself full on. And Carolee and I had made so many big decisions at this point, leaving Mormonism, stepping into our healing, confronting the shadow work, just being bold and courageous. And then, of course, leaving my career. And I knew at this moment what the universe was calling me to was that I needed to let go of the way I approached my money and guarded and hoarded it and saved it. And all that's due to some stuff in the past. But I went ahead and chose in that moment, from this inspiration of this book, thank you, Kyle Reese, to live, like, basically choose going all in on my life and live the full fuck yes. And so I called Carolee on this drive, and I'm like, babe, I know what we need to do. Because at the moment I made that decision, at the moment that this hit me, all of that energy released, and I was just in joy and bliss again. And I was like, whoa, I found it. I found the thing that was blocking me. I wasn't choosing into living my life. I'm just guarding and hoarding and securing and being small. And so I was like, babe, we'd read that book, The Becoming by Ben and Azria, and this Kyle Reese, like, An Illusion of Money. I'm like, I know what it is. We need to go all in and just say yes to life on everything. Let's just do this year for the next 12 months. We're just going to go all in and say yes to everything. And she was like, okay. It was like, sounds cool and adventurous. So that brings us to the beginning of February 2022. And after we had made this choice to go all in on ourselves and essentially live what we call the full fuck yes that we kind of captured from Ben and Azria's book, the magic started to pour in. The changes started to pour in. It was just wild. So do you want to pick it up from
Yeah,
there?
let's get into that. Just
Yeah, we can pause.
She's going to be meowing. Freya. I don't want her meowing in the background.
I didn't hear her, babe. It's fine. It's totally fine if she's meowing. Okay? Let it be. Try to stay present.
Okay. So, I want to just, before jumping into how we moved into that full fuck yes, I just want to give voice real quick to what it was like being, we were really living in these roles. We had been doing work to kind of integrate and have our relationship be more fair and be more balanced. But there was a big act of faith on my part that surrendered to you leaving employment. That was a big threshold for me personally.
Yeah, totally.
And then when you called and said we're going to live this full fuck yes, I had already kind of moved through the fear to some extent of you leaving Hemp Lucid and not being in, full-time employment. Yeah. And so I had this space that felt very open within me that was like, you know what? I've really also lived so small. There's been so many dreams and so many things hidden that I just not even been able to access. And
we were saying no all the time to things. No to new clothes. No to travel. No to this. No to that.
Well, and I had some specific things that I really wanted to be able to say yes to. And, we had 4 kids. I loved my nursing relationship with each one of the children. So oftentimes some of the no's came because I had to prioritize, the yeses for, travel's complicated when you're nursing. You've got to travel with something to accommodate the milk, or, you have to take into account how long you can be gone for based on that nursing relationship. And so there was a lot of things that we were emerging out of that were opening to the possibility. I was literally still nursing Eva at this time. I nursed her our entire travels. She wasn't weaned until her 3rd birthday when we were back in the States.
That's true.
So there was still a lot of that happening. But when you called and you said, there's this idea of the full fuck yes, let's do it. That was not a hard yes for me to say, because I love a good adventure. I love to have fun, and I had so much that I had wanted to do that I couldn't give myself permission to do. So you taking the lead, being the leader in this space, and being like, we're going to say yes. I was able to meet that, and be like, oh, I'm so excited to say yes. So we sat down and we started making a list. We should find that list. Where is that? You've got that list?
Yeah, it's in that book right there.
Well, maybe you should pull it up and we should read through it. I remember some of the key points though.
Yoga retreat.
There was a yoga retreat. Yep. One of my things was actually a YTT.
Yeah. Well, that's what basically.
Yeah. For me, it was like the teacher training component, right? A yoga retreat. There's like a yoga retreat that I literally just saw on my phone that Amanda's doing in France this summer.
It might have actually been written down as a YTT. I can't remember.
It was written down as a YTT. Yeah, I remember that
yoga
part.
Teacher training.
Yeah. All right, I want to go to yoga retreats, week-long things. This was a teacher training that because yoga and that trauma-informed container that had set the foundation for my healing, it really felt like something I needed to dive more deeply into. So I felt really called to that, and you did too. I said that, and you were like, that's a yes for me as well. So, that was one of the things we wanted to take the kids on their first trip. The kids.
Well, and just, we always have liked to do things together. And so while you were like YTT, I was like, I'd love to do a YTT with you, it wasn't like something I was disinterested in.
It was an easy yes for you too, right? So that's the thing that's cool about, we get these ideas and then it's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Right, 'cause 2 is better than 1.
2 is better. So YTT was on there.
Some travel to Arizona.
Well, we hadn't decided Arizona yet. We wanted to take the kids on a plane ride.
Right. We hadn't done any travel with the kids ever with planes.
Yeah, so we wanted to take them on a trip that required a plane. We didn't know where that was going to be.
That ended up happening big time.
Then another
sexual re-education.
Yep, we knew we definitely needed.
This one I was calling in more heavily, but Carolee was acknowledging the need for it, and within the next few months, it would become very apparent for that need.
Yeah.
And so we called in. Yeah, it was just like some sort of. We didn't know what it was at the time. We were just like, we needed sexual re-education. We had been, raised in the confines of the Mormon church, no sexual education whatsoever, just abstinence and no, and then go.
Yeah.
And then just given, the history of the infidelity and then abuse in both of our childhoods, we needed to just be kind of re-educated completely.
Yeah, we needed, yeah. So there was that. Let me see what else I can remember. Then there was, that was kind of prompted because we had also seen that Goop series on sexual healing.
That's right, yeah.
Right, and so
thank you, what's her name?
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, thank you. Gwyneth Paltrow, we're giving you a nod. You would never believe it, but yeah, this actually helped us a lot.
Yeah, so we were watching that and
and how to build a sex room too was also, remember?
Yeah.
How to build a sex room. We were like, ooh, this is cool.
Yeah, it was really, really monumental in helping us reframe. So we saw this Goop and, this series, and they had 8 episodes all about healing around sexuality and embodiment. And so that kind of helped us break out of the fear that came naturally with the idea of being in person, at an in-person kind of healing container that had a sexual theme. So we were like, okay, we wrote that down.
CE5.
Oh, right. We also wrote down that we wanted to go.
So early in the awakening, once I kind of left Mormonism, it was easy for me to jump back into my beliefs about essentially extraterrestrials, because I'd sort of put that all in a weird place because of how it didn't really fit in properly to Mormon doctrine. Mm-hmm. And so once I left the church, it was like, boom, that's open. And I found Dr. Stephen Greer and started learning about his protocol of meditation to create contact with extraterrestrials, and had actually an experience or two. And so I was like, let's go do a CE5 meditation thing where we can learn about that and actually do it live with him.
Yeah. So we had, that was just to name a few. There were more on that list.
There were more, but those were the big ones. And then, the big one was just that we were saying yes to things.
Yeah.
That it wasn't about, oh, we can't do that, can't afford it. It's not time-wise. I'm not in a job anymore. There's no career holding me. The kids were in schools that, Emerson was in homeschool, and the other kids were in a school that was easy for us to just do whatever we wanted. So there wasn't anything holding us down anyway. And then, the other big thing was we said yes to loving our home.
Right.
This was actually a big one because we had moved in, we built the home for fuck's sakes, and spent a lot of money finishing the basement. And when we moved in, there was all these things that came up with neighbors and the lot size and the drainage and so many things. And we just kind of got mad at the house, and we hadn't really fully moved in with our hearts yet. And so we're like, we're just gonna settle in and move in with the house, and So that was another big one. And so we started finishing things. Projects had been kind of on delay and whatever.
Yeah, I will add at this time too, another thing that helped us anchor in financially was the fact that we actually had a finished basement apartment that we were using as an Airbnb. Mm-hmm. And so,
yeah, it was
subsidizing and helping
our
that
mortgage and yeah, just our livelihood. It was our livelihood for the time.
So we even like poured our hearts more even into that offering of like within our home, we welcome travelers. There's always been like, I see it now as like a lifetime purpose of being a place where a wanderer, traveler would feel at home, you know, and even now here at our home in Colorado, like that's part of the vision.
We've just learned how to drop into our home in a more present way. And I think that was a really important lesson for us. Yeah. And actually what it was so funny about it is, okay, so we made this decision, live full fuck yes. We made the list, and then everything just started happening.
Right. So one of the most exciting like ways that it kicked off. Okay.
Are you going to talk about the mushroom journey? Because that's what kicked it off.
I guess you start there. I was going to jump to something else first. So we go to that.
Start with the email. Uh-huh. Yeah. So I think actually the mushroom journey started
was
it
first.
Yeah. So what happened was immediately after that, Carolee and I, so we're like still February 1, February 2 here. And it was like, we needed to have, the word that was calling to me was initiation. We needed to level up. And we hadn't done a mushroom ceremony basically since that Park City Kundalini experience. And so, so we decided we wanted to do another real ceremony, and we called it initiation. And it was, so we did that on the 11th of February, a few days later, like a week later or so. And that I think was just a beautiful way to kind of consecrate this new energy of like saying yes to things, and we're ready for the next level. We're ready, Spirit, to guide us into, the next level of blocks that we need to let go of, and like just start living our life in a more joyful, more present, more uplifting, and more magical way. Okay, so that happened on the 11th, and then it was like right after that if you want to talk about.
Well, I mean, that journey in and of itself could be its whole own podcast, because what came of that was the undoing of our sealing in Mormonism. But I don't know if that's its own. That happened
right then too.
That happened then too.
Oh my God. So yeah.
Yeah.
So the big thing, I'll just kind of preface the rest of 2022. So here we are, the beginning of February.
Yeah.
We decided to do all this, and I'm just going to jump ahead. Within 4.5 months of that saying yes, we had made the decision to sell everything and leave.
Which wasn't part of necessarily the list.
I guess so, 5.5 months, because we went from...
It was June that we decided.
So it was only 4.5 months. So June, July, or February, March, April, May. Yeah, so 5.5 months.
Yeah.
We went from basically saying, oh, we're going to really, live in our home and love it and move in with our hearts, to choosing to sell everything and traveling. We first initially, you'll find out, was Bali, but
yeah,
that was what's crazy. So what happened between that time that we said yes to everything and why we ended up choosing to sell everything and leave was the fucking wild ride of our life.
It was so wild,
so intense. Every week almost was like another portal of change.
Yeah. So one of the things, I guess, to start off with is, after we did this ceremony, and then we had some realizations about Mormonism, about the binding nature of the sealing ritual, how it was actually inhibiting our sovereignty and our personal kind of gnosis, because we were essentially bound for eternity through the sealing ordinance done in the Mormon temple to the entity known in Christianity as God or Heavenly Father. But,
really it was between the entity named Elohim.
Yeah. So we had this kind of unwinding from all of that, which deserves its own podcast episode. So I'm not even going to go into it.
Yeah, because it's so fucking.
There's
Yeah.
so many layers to what went down. And I actually had my first past life vision in that experience. Again, its own episode. Gonna just table that. But what I want to get to is when you do this kind of work and you say, I'm ready for the next step, you're shown a vision often, especially when you're using medicine in this way, of the potential. And then it drops you deep into the clearing. What needs to clear? What needs to go? What's no longer serving? What patterns, generational, personal, cultural, all need to kind of be in this cauldron, so to speak, to be alchemized into the greatest potential that you've ever imagined possible. So we were deep. We were willing, in saying yes, we were willing to also let go. In saying yes, we were willing to go deep, to descend low, to say what's blocking.
Well, yeah, and this is like the principle of manifesting. When you're calling in something in an aligned way, which is what we were doing with choosing into the full fuck yes, we were really aligned about it. It was like, this is the energy that was blocking me. She was in, and as a union, we were in. And when you do that, it was just like you open up the door. You open up the. You could say the doorways to the hell within you. And what I mean by that is all of the unconscious shadow energy, the unintegrated things within you that are stopping you from having the experience you're calling in.
Yeah, so that's what we were working through, right? And then things started to just kind of pop and land and present themselves. So one of the first things that presented itself was this email that came to Britton, because he was signed up for MC Yogi's email list of like events and music
Concerts,
drops
yeah.
and concerts and yoga classes, et cetera, et cetera. And Nick, he's a friend now, MC Yogi, he literally sent out this email that was like, who wants to go to Bali for a
YTT.
200-hour YTT? And I remember sitting there and you were like, I just got this email and we had a YTT on our list.
It was like the first test of, will you say yes to this?
Yeah, it was like, hey, babe, do you want to go to Bali for a yoga teacher training? And I was like,
Month long.
a month-long yoga teacher training. It was originally scheduled for May of 22. Do you want to go to Bali for a month-long YTT? It's on the list. How do you feel about doing it in Bali? Keep in mind, we were in a place where there were YTTs happening frequently or all around us, you know? And so
Yeah, all the time.
it wasn't like we needed to leave to access this kind of a training. But oh my goodness, when you looked at me and you were like, what about this idea? That was definitely something that my heart and my body wanted to say yes to. But my mind, the logical mind, always had given excuses. And I was like, wait a minute. For real? Like, seriously? We'd seriously consider going and doing like a month-long YTT immersive with our favorite musician, somebody whose music was so fundamentally supportive during years of our transformation and healing? Okay, what? Like, you're really looking at me and saying, you know, that this is a possibility.
And we had 4 kids at the time, so it's like, how do we say yes to it? It's a really complicated scenario. So we're like, well, I guess we'll just bring the whole family.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, let's bring the whole family.
Because it's a month. It's not like leaving your kids for like a week's okay, maybe 2 weeks, but
yeah,
not
no.
a month.
Well, and especially I was still nursing.
Yeah,
It
So
wasn't.
It wasn't
She was.
even.
Yeah, it was. She had a lot of other things, but I still wanted to cultivate that relationship with Eva, and I didn't want to give it up yet, and I didn't want to be gone from our kids for an entire month. None of that felt right.
Mm-hmm.
So we went ahead and said yes. We reached out to Rachel and Jules, the couple that was coordinating the event, through Exhale Yoga. They're based in Bali. And we started the ball rolling on getting our passports, you know.
Yeah, and then we also we knew that we would need support because we were going to be at this thing, 8 to 10 hours a day. And so we wanted someone to be with our children, and what we needed to call in some help. So we reached out to our network and We were just like in this alignment. And so we're like, well, we need a woman that can come down and be with us in
that will
Bali.
travel with us to Bali
Travel with
and
us to
like
Bali.
live with our family and help take care of our kids while both of us are doing this retreat. So yeah, so we put that out there. We ended up buying our plane tickets. We ended up booking our Airbnb. We ended up doing everything. We ended up telling the kids' schools. I know it's like the last month of school for all of these programs, but we don't care. We're just going to go to Bali for the month. And it's just going to have to be what it is for all of these other commitments and all of these other things, because saying yes to ourselves was the priority. It was the thing.
It was the priority we put. Yeah.
It was above all else. It was above all else.
Like, we'll make it work because we're saying yes to it.
Yeah. So
And the universe helped us out a lot. But let's not go into all the complications of it, because that would take a long time.
yeah.
But I think what's good to say about it is that this opportunity of going to Bali was like, it was the first one that sort of showed up on our door. And it was also like the thing that would actually take us away from living in Utah.
Well, yeah. And when we first said that we were doing this, several friends responded and said, "You're not coming back."
Yeah, that was so weird.
It was so weird.
we
and
told
we're like,
people-
guys, it's only a month.
Like, we told you we're just going for a month, and like, oh, you're not going to come back. Huh? No, like, you didn't hear us. We're just leaving for a month. We'll be back. We have a whole home here and stuff. There was no intention to sell anything at this time. It was just, but it was like prophecies coming from your random friends.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not, yeah, again, there's so much of it to weave and to tell, and we want to like keep it kind of high level. But the point is, with all of this, is we said yes. The ball started rolling to go to this YTT in Bali. And then we actually, my uncle had passed away in January, and I went to his funeral and connected with my cousins in Arizona. And that opened up a possibility to go back around like spring break. So end of March, beginning of April. And so we took that opportunity to get our kids, first plane ride to Arizona to visit my family, to drop in. And it was while we were in Arizona that we got word that the entire YTT thing was canceled because Bali was still slowly opening. There were complications due to the way it had been closed down because of COVID, and it wasn't quite ready to like hold. This was one of the first retreats that was going to be done post COVID.
Yeah, it was, yeah, there was still a lot of complications in opening it up and like the restrictions of quarantine and all that silliness.
Yeah. So basically, we said yes, and then we put all of this effort into it and money.
We bought the tickets, the flight, and I was like, we're so committed. I don't even need to worry about, like, you're buying tickets for 7 people. It's like a lot of money. It was like I think it was like $6,500. So I was like, fuck, I could pay another like $1,200 or I don't know, $1,500 or more to get these tickets cancelable or exchangeable or whatever. But I was like, man, we're going to be spending, I think it was it was about the same amount of money. It was like 6,000, 6,500 in that range for the Airbnb for the month, which looking back on it, was ridiculous. I don't know how we ended up. I think it was just people were coming out of COVID, and the prices of the Airbnbs in Bali were shooting up because they just were desperate for money. So we got suckered into that, and then and then we bought the tickets. So we were in over $12K at this point just for this experience. And I was like, whatever, we're saying yes, we're doing it, we're dropping the money, and then we get this notice that it was canceled, and we're like, oh, fuck. And the Airbnb wasn't exchangeable. And so we had all of a sudden all this money worry just started flowing through me.
And so this idea that we would be in Bali for a month in May all of a sudden imploded and like wasn't what was happening. And so we weren't quite sure what was happening. You did pay extra money to make sure that like if we decided to go to Bali later that year, that the tickets could actually be used.
I ended up spending more money so that we essentially could reschedule the flights. And then I worked with Airbnb and got about 20% of the Airbnb deposit back.
Yeah. And then we just kind of proceeded. I mean, there was the proceeded, is its own story too, because there was a lot of things that ended up happening that were in alignment with the yes and the shadow work that had to clear for these yeses to come through.
But we weren't deterred. We were like, okay, we'll look forward to it. Like that was a lesson or whatever. But ultimately we had to like acknowledge that this may not even happen. And also what happened for Carolee at this time, and I'll just kind of put a little context, is I had been for the last, year or so working through this infidelity stuff. And part of it was I wanted to open things up in our marriage more. I wanted to have experiences outside. I think at the time I didn't fully know that it was really part of my healing, but it was also just part of that saying yes to the urges and the energy within that had been so suppressed and so pushed down. And so Carolee and I were doing like shadow work like nightly about this and like trying to talk about what it would look like. She had a lot of hesitation, so much fucking hesitation around this. Naturally, of course, this made sense given the infidelity pattern. And
well, to me, in a lot of ways, the desire, the request, hey, let's open our marriage was like, nothing's different. It's the exact same thing as infidelity. This was my baseline of understanding how it felt in my body. It was not going to be any different. The only difference was my awareness about it beforehand. I just wasn't going to be...
You basically understood it as I will still have the same bodily reaction, trauma, the PTSD. All of that will continue to reverberate, but I'll be sort of walking myself into this trap, knowing that it's going to happen. And so we were trying to heal that undercurrent of energy. And well, do you want to just say when the email dropped that it was canceled on my birthday?
Yeah. So
what came to you?
What? Okay. I guess I'll go there.
I think you need to go there.
Yeah, I need to go there. So I just want to preface that like I had really always desired to be embodied, but also I was always very scared of embodiment, of sexual expression and exploration. And the wounding of betrayal, confirmed actually by my astrological blueprint of my natal chart, which that's all I'm going to say about that. But it's all there written in the stars in my blueprint of what I actually came into this life to transcend and to heal. I can see it through my Chiron and my Venus placement and where they're at on my chart. That I learned years later, and actually
and
it
your
was
moon placement
and my moon place. Like it's all just gave me so much comfort in my own story. But like I did not want that opening up, allowing your yes into your opening of what this could look like to not have to hide in the shadows anymore about the play and the expression with others outside of our union. That was the piece that was really important for you. But for me, it all just was trauma. It all just was the continuation of trauma. It was like...
You couldn't see it yet.
I couldn't see what it could be. And so back into February, I had been tuned in. This was still around the same time as this part's important to kind of share why I was able to make the decisions that I made. So I was tuned in to this woman's call. She was introduced to me by another really like soul sister friend, and she was this woman. Her name's Jillian, and she's very witchy, and she was holding these like online kind of ritual gathering. This was the only one I ever attended by her. I haven't done any since, but this anchored truth into my being that I could not deny. I remember standing in our home in American Fork, trying to lock Eva out of the room. Leave mommy alone. I'm on a phone call, headphones on my ears, listening to this call, standing at my altar.
It still happens today.
It does. Exact same thing. Leave mommy alone. I'm on a call. I really need to listen. And Jillian said this. This was like the truth bomb that she just delivered. She just transmitted, and I had to receive it. And it just filled me. She said, "What are you afraid of?" And I looked at that, I felt into it, and I answered the question for myself at that moment in my life. And my answer to that question was, I know it's a little bit like shock and awe. It's a little bit even wild for me to admit it now, but I'm going to. The answer to that question at that point in my life, which I could not admit to her, like I wasn't going to like raise my hand and be like, let me share what I'm afraid of. But my fear was, I'm afraid of having sex with someone other than my husband. I was a virgin when we got married, and my own embodiment and flowing into receiving was something that was blocked even in our union. So I couldn't imagine allowing it to be opened in any space. Now, a little nod to astrology. My Venus is actually in Taurus. And for everyone who knows what that means, I am stubborn and I am slow and safety is really important. And I'm grounded in sensual things, right? Like it's a very grounded energy. It's not an exploratory energy at all. Aisha, our favorite astrologer, would say if there is a placement, a Venus placement that is monogamous, it is that. And so that was me. Like I can give myself so much grace in the fact that I didn't want to do any of it, literally based on my astrology and where my Venus actually feels the most alive. So I'm sitting in this call though, and you had kept inviting me, let's open, it'll be really good. Like you really wanted to allow me.
I mean, it was basically looking for experiences. Like it wasn't like a jump into, let's just be open and crazy. It was like, let's have some experiences, you know? So I was basically calling in like, let's have a threesome, you know? and it was like, no, I can't do it.
I didn't want to do it. Okay. So
been very resistant. And to be honest, I'm just going to add a little bit more context. This actually had been a reoccurring theme of like just opening up more sexually, even in our own marriage, just between us. Like, how do I unlock this woman? Like, where's the fucking key? Where do I insert it? How do I turn it? Like, it had been this quest of mine to like get her to love her body enough that she could just be pleasureful in it and playful in it. And like the vision that I saw of her, I could not unlock. And it drove me away from her too. But it was also something that I highly desired to do, you know, to achieve. But the truth is I couldn't achieve it. She had to achieve it for herself through her own desire to want to achieve it.
Yeah. So I think, you know, it's important to like put that out there, that a huge part of your push to say, let's experience things had to do with your own desire to just experience it without the shame and the guilt. Like you really wanted to be free from all of those feelings that had plagued every sexual experience your entire life.
Pretty much.
And then for me, there was actually like this genuine love that you felt like not understanding our own unique blueprints, you literally thought that if I could just allow myself to feel pleasure, it didn't matter with who, that it would unlock my embodiment.
Yeah, but funny is like, I really saw that as a possibility, but looking back now, first of all, like you have to unlock your own pleasure. You have to want to heal. And she wasn't in a place to really be able to do that properly. But I knew what was pushing in me, and I had to honor myself. This was the thing, was we honored our truths. We were doing that. We had healed enough emotionally that we knew part of the healing work was that we had to honor what was in us individually. And so, you know, the energy in me was like, I have to do this. I need to explore this. This is calling to me. And that can sound weird to some people listening to this. To others, it may actually sound very important and relatable. So all of that intensity, that pressure, all of that years and years of context of sexual expression and repression was kind of up to this moment in our relationship, and it was building with intensity, with intensity over intensity, week by week. I mean, even going back to December, I remember us having a deep conversation after I left Hemp Lucid, like, hey, we need to blah, 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 and just putting pressure on her, not in a wrong way. I think I was doing it in a healthy way. She's just fucking stubborn as a mule, you know? And in this way, she couldn't, like, she's an adventurer. She wants to do things, but in this way, totally locked up. So going back now to the message
the message that this woman delivered,
Yeah.
that was so timely. And honestly, thank you, Jillian, for your magic and your wisdom. She doesn't even know how much she's impacted my life. So just grateful for all the people who spread their message and share their truth.
so many little random angels.
Yeah. So anyway, she says, "What are you afraid of?" And I answered the question. I was like, "I'm afraid of like sex with others. I'm afraid of just that with anybody, with anybody." I almost actually had the same fear even with you to some extent. There was a lot of things to work through for myself. And she said, "What do you want?" That was the next question. And I was like, okay, I'm afraid of opening my marriage. What do I want? I want a healed relationship. And remember, like we had put forth really clearly that this was an important thing for us individually to heal ourselves. I knew healed relationship wasn't necessarily only attached to our relationship. It was like I knew with or without you, I was going to have to heal things so that I could have a healed relationship in the future with whomever it ended up being with, you know. And in some ways the logic brain was also saying, look, if you don't make it with this guy, are you really going to want to be celibate for the rest of your life and not let anybody penetrate you, like not let anybody close to you?
I can't believe you were actually thinking along those lines. It's like kind of crazy.
I totally was. It was like, I'm so scared of having sex with anyone other than you. But like I was so...
That's some deep Mormon programming right there.
You know, like I literally, talking about deep Mormon programming. You want to know the other belief? You already know this, but I'll tell everybody else. The other belief was that if I allowed myself to open in this way, I would literally lose my soul.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
I literally thought I would die, like not physically die, but like complete soul level destruction and death, that I would be no more.
And that for sure is Mormon programming. That's like...
Or any other kind of high demand religious structure that says sex is so sacred that you can't...
Purity culture.
Your purity culture just like puts it in this tight box. And so it's like...
you're only meant for one or whatever, you know, like all of that nonsense.
So I had these deep programs that it was like, okay, I'm just going to lose my entire soul if I do this. And that was scary. But
so the great grand truth was...
She said, "What do you want?" A healed relationship. And then she goes, this is not what I was expecting. She was like, "It is through your fears that you get what you want." And I was like, fuck. Yeah, no, I can't do that. I cannot do, nope. No. So I got off that call and I was like, oh, that was intense. Okay, we've got this plan. We're going to go to Bali. Everything's great. And I honestly was tracking maybe when we returned from Bali in the summer after I did a whole month long of YTT. This is literally what was going through my brain. Okay, I am telling you word for word what was actually logically happening. If we go to Bali and I do yoga for an entire month and like I'm eating vegetarian.
I'll heal first, then I'll heal. Right?
Yeah, I'll feel better in my body because I had always struggled with body image issues.
Yeah.
I'll feel better. I'll lose weight. I'll be sexier. I'll come back. And then we can like slowly maybe attempt to do something along these lines, because one way or the other, it's probably eventually going to happen. And I just, this woman, she gave me these codes that I've got to go through my fears to like get what I want. And fuck, there was a lot to it. So when Bali was canceled,
it hit you.
I realized I was spiritually bypassing.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, that I was like purposefully avoiding this thing.
You canceled Bali. You caused it to
I did not.
The universe was like, you think you're going to get around
Well,
this.
no, here's the thing. Mama Bali is so loving and merciless at the same time. Mm-hmm. She is like true. I mean, she is the Kali. Okay. And while we lived in Bali, she actually called me her own. Like I felt this identity, this name, this mantle come upon me of Kali Vega. And that's a whole nother story, another tangent. But Kali would not allow me to come to Bali without my pure inner alignment. Like I had to go through my own fires of transformation. I couldn't just use Bali as an excuse.
Yeah.
Bali does that to you. It's an intense, a beautifully powerful, deeply rooted and grounded intensity that when you are on the path of like truly healing, it's going to just purge and help towards that high alignment, right? So I saw this. I saw that I was waiting. I saw that I was bypassing. I saw that I was avoiding. I saw that I was resisting. But I also could feel simultaneously the threads of that. What do you want most? It was more than that. It was more than just a healed relationship. It was like a healed relationship with myself. It was healed embodiment. It was healed presence. It was healed desire. I didn't even know what desire was. It was something generationally that was shut off in the women in my line. Like I saw it in my grandmothers. I saw it in people in my family that we didn't have this. Desire was like a button turned off. You're not supposed to have it.
It was an entire set of chakra energies. Like it was like, God. And it was a pain point in our relationship for so many years. I would have conversations with her. Carolee, why don't you instigate? Carolee, I want to be desired. I want to feel you. I want to feel your desire. Oh, I don't know what that is. It was just something that it was a struggle, and it was hard. And thinking back on all of that, man, like I was barely making it because my soul wanted that so badly. My soul wanted a deeper connection with you. My soul wanted better sex with you. I knew it was possible. I think I pre-programmed myself to know what the potential was.
You must have, because the reality of what we were living in actually was all of these things, not just like not active, they were like in the negative.
So I would say, in equal parts, an average couple in our position, the man would have left the woman would have left the man many times over. Like you're not embodied, you're not sexual, you can't even really step into that no matter what I tried, and I tried fucking everything. And I was cheating on you. Right. And I was connecting with other women, and I was like seeking emotional connections outside of our relationship. So we were both fucking each other over badly. And that's the truth.
And not in the fun way.
Not
fucking
in the fun
each other
way.
Badly is
not like it is today.
Really fun, no.
Yeah. So the truth is, fear is the portal to freedom. This is like the great key to all of our journeys. What you fear the most will set you free if you can walk through it, if you can face it, if you can confront it, if you can allow yourself to drop your judgments, to drop your preconceived notions and ideas of what you think is okay morally, what you think is okay before God, before your soul. Like she was hitting the deep portal of like the soul destruction. Oh, this is it. If I do this, like I'm never coming back.
Oh yeah, if I do this, my soul is toast.
Right. So that's fear, right? And the spirit doesn't work through fear. So where was that coming from, right?
That's a good thing to point out. Yeah. So we looked at this, and when we were literally in Arizona on his birthday, got the notice that Bali was canceled. Later, it came out that it was potentially going to be just postponed and rescheduled for October. And so thank God we like paid the extra money to possibly have our tickets held and reuse them, but when all of that went down, we like just released, I don't even know if Bali's going to happen, just let it go. And so I realized that I was holding this part of my story back, part of our healing back. And so, we knew some people, we knew a guy, And
We knew a guy.
we knew a guy that this
Had already been a little bit interested in like, he'd been flirty with the two of us, or you.
Yeah.
Really, it was really you. And yeah, was like open. He was like basically had offered an experience.
And so the night before my 39th birthday, when we were back in Utah, I mean, you're April 1st, I'm April 8th, I messaged him and he came over and we had our first threesome.
Yeah. And I loved it. It was awesome. It was so cool. And I was like having fun the entire time. And I was just like, oh my God, this is better than I thought it was. And I was like loving it. And then like after he left and, you know, we got to talk and start to integrate.
It was really the next day.
It was like the next day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. On my birthday.
Carolee was like,
I hated
back
that.
in her PTSD.
I was like, ah. Yeah. It was not, I mean, no discredit to this man. He's actually a really lovely human.
It was nothing against him at all.
It was nothing against him at all. He was great. He
was actually really considerate, really gentle, really like chivalristic. Like he was like, yeah, it was great. It was a great experience. Honestly, it was.
It really was a great first experience.
Yeah.
I was not doing it. I was not able to do anything from this place of actual, like, again, my desire was not even turned on. It was like in the negative space, right? And so the next day, it triggered in me some of my trauma and truly was the beginning of a journey that would see me repeating my own betrayal of myself. This was something, a path that I had to walk, to root into trust in myself and to get to know myself and get to know what my desires were. But, you know, we had other experiences after this. And every time in the present moment, I could kind of play and be somewhat present, but also because of our programming, because of the conditioning, because of my own life story and what the trauma in my body and the generational patterns, all of it, I see all of it now. It was all basically kind of this cauldron that was sort of working against me as I was moving. I was being so courageous to move into this fear. Like, I'm such a fucking courageous, badass warrior of light woman who really just wanted to ascend. Like, honestly, that's all I was trying to do. But I had to confront that fear. I had to go into the unknown and I had to be willing to fuck up and make mistakes. I say mistakes in quotes because really it was just key moments of recalibration. I didn't lose my soul. I was able to
gained it. And that's the funny thing about fear, isn't it?
Yeah, I was able to even more deeply access my soul in ways that beforehand were completely closed off. It was like, now I look at things when people say, don't do this. It's like, oh, you don't want me to ascend. That's why you're trying to keep me small. Peace,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, when someone says don't do something, you already know they're fucking with you. That's the thing you need to do.
Yeah. So I mean, that led, we began, that was April, and we had a couple other experiences and
Well, I want to drop in here. And so, yeah, we had some other experiences, and one of them was very traumatizing for me. And so I got a taste of all of her PTSD that she experienced through betrayals and me disclosing those betrayals. And again, well, let's just say most of it was emotional betrayal, right? Like I'm disclosing that I'm having in a relationship through texting, or I'm sending naughty pictures or something. But there was a couple of meetups, and so I got a taste of that medicine. I disembodied, I disassociated. I was completely out of my body. I think this was the most out of my body I've ever felt when she was connecting with another man, and. And I recognize what that was all about. There's a lot we could talk about, but it was after that.
Yeah, this was not the birthday experience. This was like another experience in like May with a different individual. Yeah.
I thought that was in April. I think it was in April.
I think it was beginning of May, but it doesn't matter.
Whenever it was, we followed that deep, sort of disembodying, disassociative experience for me, we followed that up with another MDMA experience, because it was like, it jarred me to a point where, and I know what it was. I finally understood what was going on later when I looked back, but it was like, she was finally about to unlock. She was finally about to find that embodiment. And what I realized was, I wanted the first experience. I wanted it.
Well, and then
and I was scared. I was so scared out of my mind that she was going to have it with someone else, that she would leave me, that she was going to finally be like, oh my God, I found pleasure with this other guy. And like, what was I doing with you, Britton? And you fucking cheated on me. So all of my fears of like the past was going to come back and haunt me, and she was going to find some embodiment with another person. And I was like completely out of my body. It was really, really horrible. And, but so we like came back and we like, okay, we need to have another like MDMA session. So we went up and got this.
Well, hang on. I want to speak before you jump into the MDMA session. When you disassociated, honestly, I was grateful.
Yeah.
I was so grateful, because literally that night in that experience, I still was not in any of it for myself, fully from within myself. I was going through the motions that I knew I needed to do, because you kept saying I needed to be unlocked and all of this.
But deep down, you knew it was
I knew it was true.
You had to be dragged
you're a
through
really
it.
beautiful, pushy, empowering guide. Okay, I'm not faulting you. But the thing that was so interesting is you were so triggered that night. And I was like, babe, I literally was just fucking doing everything you said for me to do.
I know.
I was following you.
But
no, hang on.
Just
let me
blame.
It wasn't blame. I was like, do you not? I don't know what to do now, because if I'm doing what you said, like, you can't handle it. It was a little bit of that. But even more than that, I'll just be honest. You did not understand the depth. I mean, I disassociated so many times from the trauma that you put me through. I had severe PTSD. I was angry and triggered. I was ungrounded and unsafe. I did not know how to trust myself or my body. I did not know how to trust you. There was so much I didn't know. And you could not understand that fully without your own somatic in the body experience of it, even to an nth degree.
Sure.
So that night, all of a sudden,
it reminds me of like, the concept in the parable of like Jesus in Gethsemane, and he's suffering for all of the sins. And like, we have to like feel and endure some small fraction of it. And that's basically what my little tiny bit was there. It was like, I needed to taste it so that I could understand. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that that was a karmic experience.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for it too, because it gave me a deeper understanding of just what was reverberating from you within you. And it helps me understand why, when I finally did figure out my issue, why you couldn't just move along with me now that I'm healed, babe, or I'm actually releasing all of this sexual energy in the right way, and I'm acknowledging it, starting with self-love and just acceptance, that you couldn't follow me on that path quickly because you were still reverberating from all of that. And I totally honor that, like, I needed that experience.
Yeah, we needed it can feel so difficult in partnership to actually feel like your partner understands, and not just like is conceptually trying to get it.
Yeah.
And that understanding truly comes, there's no deeper teacher than your own experience.
Yeah.
And so, I wasn't trying to do anything that would have taken me away from you. I was literally just trying to fucking actually embody and choose into things that my body was not really wanting me to choose into, but like my soul knew it was important for my healing.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, we need to get up and do another experience and like do MDMA together to look at this. And I also wanted to cut ties with this guy because I thought he was a threat, and frankly, he wasn't. But I just was like, in my own trauma response. And so we did. We went up and we had we actually started a ceremony of cutting ties, and we were going to do that. And then, like, before we could do it, Carolee, I could tell she was hesitant, and I'm writing down, like, okay, we're like, we're letting go of we're doing this, blah blah blah. Oh, did I just say his name? I'll have to bleep that out. We're letting go of this person, and then I could tell that there was actually some energy still in her that we couldn't move through, and start this sort of cord cutting ritual, which wasn't really a cord cutting, but it was just a release ritual. And we started talking, and it was like, okay, I put the pen down. I'm like, let's talk. Let's figure out what's going through you. And it was in this conversation. This is such a breakthrough conversation. This was the conversation that we needed to reboot our whole relationship. So I needed to undergo that trauma within me so that I could feel her, and then she could finally be like, he feels me, right? And so the conversation was actually a discovery that I wasn't all in with her. And I hadn't been, obviously. I mean, that's obvious, right? But I wasn't all in with her, and I finally admitted that. And she then said, yeah, I'm not all in on you either.
Yeah. And I just want to say, I mean, anybody who's going through betrayal, like, I don't recommend intentionally setting up a container to, like, have your spouse experience the same betrayal that you've experienced. Like,
that just happened as a consequence.
It was a karmic reckoning, a somatic experience.
Please don't put yourself in a situation where you intentionally do that, because that's just more damage.
Yeah, that's more damage. So, like, that was the other piece of, like, I was like, I would have never wished this upon you. I wasn't actually trying to inflict
for sure
this lesson.
And I also recognized it immediately for what it was and honored it. I didn't even spend time, like, complaining too much. Like, it was still, like, there was a week or two where I was, like, reverberating through it, but it was like, I knew it was for me. I knew that experience was something I needed to have, and it wasn't this get me back sort of energy at all.
Yeah. So, we can look at it now in this come from and be like, oh, this was actually a really crucial experience for our total understanding of each other. Him being able to you being able to understand somatically what I felt and actually like get it allowed me the safety that I desperately needed, because it's one thing to go through betrayal repeatedly and then still choose into the relationship. It's another thing to then have that history. And then, oftentimes there's women who are infidelity coaches and betrayal coaches, and they're often talking about how women are inclined in these relationships to do, like, secret phone checking, to have to do check-ins, behavioral check-ins with their spouses, behavioral check-ins with their partners. What messages, what friendships, what are you cultivating outside? Are you being fully appropriate? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you watching porn? What are you doing? There's often this need in these coach spaces to,
which is just a form of bypassing.
And I was doing a lot of that. I didn't trust. And imagine, not only do we have that energy happening, but there was also this desire to have openness. And so it wasn't like we could make agreements that you couldn't talk to other people, because we had also kind of decided that we were going to allow some exploration, and we didn't have the knowledge or the foundation to know how to, like, navigate that in a conscious container. We were trying the best we knew how, and I think we actually did a pretty good job navigating it, all things considered.
Yeah.
But, my situation felt different. And it might not actually have been that different from a lot of other people walking this path. That's part of the reason why we're, like, willing to tell our story.
Mm-hmm. But there's so much healing that needs to be done in this space.
But at this point in our healing, I was so fearful, and I couldn't be honest about what it is I was really going through, that I couldn't, like, approach any of the other women that held my story, that knew my story confidently, and say, well, I'm not quite sure how to navigate the checking of the phone thing, because also we're trying to navigate open relating.
And we also knew that like, we knew it wasn't really a solution. Like, and like, I told her I'm not going to like stop talking to my friends just because it makes you feel uncomfortable. You know, like it's not like all my conversations were like of this disloyalty and, you know, sexual nature. I had lots of genuine girls that were friends, women that were friends of mine. And anyway, so I want to get back to the other part. So we realized we weren't all in on each other, and we've sort of hit the hour mark here. So I'm thinking we needed episode 3. Maybe a 4th one, but yeah, cause like there were so many events in this early part of 2022. So with the acknowledgement that we were never actually all in fact, I told her, I said, like, I don't think I ever like had that full like feeling of falling in love with you. And she was like, me either. It was John for me, you know, which was her ex fiance from before I even met her. So this realization, this truth had bubbled up to the surface, and it was important because we needed to confront that energy of like, well, you know, if we wanted to continue this relationship, and we both did, and it was becoming apparent that, you know, like there was a lot of potential that this relationship could yield. And so we were like very interested in it, but we were still in the deep thick of like trying to figure this shit out, with the infidelity and what it meant to be sovereign and you know, so at that moment we decided that we would have a new, like, basically marriage ceremony of kinds for ourselves. Oh, I had already burnt the marriage certificate at this point.
Yeah, you burnt it in February.
I burnt it in February.
After that mushroom journey.
After the mushroom journey, it was like, fucking not, I am not going to be known in this marriage under the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. No way. So I was like, get out of here. And it wasn't meaning, it actually had nothing to do with you and our marriage. It was like, I'm not going to have a marriage certificate that has a fucking LDS temple on it. So I burnt it, and I have a beautiful like Instagram reel if you find it, but back in February of 22. And
that was hard
that was
moment.
hard for you, but I think you took it the wrong way, honestly, because
well, you didn't actually. This was the first time you literally said that you didn't want to have anything with the Mormon temple on it. Like, you didn't even say that then. It was just
it was all the things. It was also like saying goodbye to our old relationship. You know, that was the marriage in the Mormon temple. It was everything Mormon, and we weren't Mormon anymore. We were like way beyond that now, multiple years, and had even like, you know, proactively removed our names. And so we were no more associated with the church, but there was this really important piece of paper in our life that had showed that we were. And so not only did I burn the marriage certificate, but we actually did a reverse sealing ceremony, which we didn't talk about, but yeah, we did that in February too. So here we are, we're at we're up at this cabin in Provo Canyon, and we're like realizing that we're not all in, and that we hadn't actually had that falling in love experience. And we were like, well, fuck. Well, let's redo this the way that we want to do, and we'll do it with our magic, and we'll connect with the moon, because we've been connecting with the moon a little bit and building that sort of pattern. And so we said, okay, May 15th, it's a blood moon, and we will I mean, we call it our new union ceremony. You could call it a remarriage. And it was a beautiful little thing, but I think we need to stop the story there and then come back for a 3rd episode and like tell the rest of what happened.
Yeah, I think so.
But you can see like the intensity of things that were going on, after we were all in on our life. Like we said, we're going all in on our life. We're living the full fuck yes. And then it was just like, destruction, just,
and it was like
through.
Mushrooms and rethinking marriage and burning marriage
and canceling Bali, like all these things were
world travel, but like canceling world travel and first trip with the family and opening up our marriage and MDMA to save our marriage. And
it was wild times,
you know, navigating interpersonal relationships and healing generational trauma and choosing in.
It was so wild.
To conclude, though, there is one more final piece that I want to add. in this episode.
Of course, baby.
Okay. Earlier in...
I'll let you have the last word.
Oh, thanks, baby. In March, before we had... Yeah, I had been facilitating at this point for a year and a half already, a book club. And this book club came to me because of a dear friend. She introduced to me Mary Magdalene Revealed by Megan Watterson. And I read that book and I realized, oh my goddess. Okay. Oh my goddess. I have been hearing the sacred word only from the perspective of the masculine my entire fucking life. My entire life.
Yeah.
Only the masculine voice. General conference, 100% men, even praying.
I mean, there's women that speak at general conference, but they're not holding authority.
Well, and that has been a newer addition. Most of my childhood did not involve seeing women do
not even allowed,
anything.
They weren't even allowed to pray in general conference until I think it was right after we left. Or
I
right
don't know.
before.
It doesn't matter. Tangent.
Yeah.
So the point is I read this book, and all of a sudden, ever since then, I've worn a red thread on my left arm, symbolic of my commitment to the feminine path. This was revolutionary for myself, to give myself this permission to seek spiritual leaders that were female oriented, that had the feminine voice, that could speak in that tune, right? So I started with Mary Magdalene Revealed by Megan Watterson, and I started a book club called the Red Thread Book Club, and there were a tight-knit group of women that joined me on this journey, and each month the books that came to us were so intuitively timed. They were so potent. The medicine, the wisdom, the magic that came through.
Mm-hmm.
In March of
books are powerful.
In March of 22, I read the book If Women Rose Rooted. This book was from the perspective of a woman who had Celtic heritage, and she tells the story of her heroine's journey, her being the hero of her own life. She went into the wasteland. How did she emerge? And she told it through myth and through personal experiences, and wove in the magic of the sacred lands from which she came ancestrally. Ireland, Scotland, Wales, like these isles of magic, of wonder, of ancestral connection came through her pages. And I was listening to this, and it was speaking of this journey to an island. Keep in mind, March was when we thought we were going to Bali in May. So I was listening to this book with this idea that I was being called on pilgrimage to this island, this sacred island that was going to help me heal. And I was hearing this book that was talking about this woman who was rooted into the earth, and that allowed her to rise as the heroine of her own story. Now, some of you might be listening to this and asking yourselves, why the fuck did Carolee stay? This sounds so bad. This sounds so intense. And here she was entertaining the idea of opening in a relationship that she didn't even want to do. It's not her nature, right? Like, why did she do it?
That's a good question.
Why? Well, there were multiple whys, but this was a divinely given why. As I was reading this book, I came across a legend that she told, a King Arthurian legend, a story of King Arthur, how he had his life challenged by this Black Knight. And
are we doing this story?
I'm just going to end with this story. It has to come in this episode. It has to be part of it. It just has to.
Right.
Okay. So just trust me on this. So the Black Knight says to King Arthur that he wanted to kill him. And King Arthur was unable to defend himself, but it wouldn't have been fair. So he said, I'll meet you back.
You can tell
Okay,
them.
I'll tell this. He said, I'll meet you back. You have a certain amount of time to come back to this very spot. And if you can return with the answer to this riddle, your life will be yours. It'll be fair. If you can't, then all fair and square, I'll be able to take it. It'll be mine. Now, the riddle was this. What do women want most?
It's not the Mel Gibson movie.
No, it's not. That's funny. So I'm reading this story and I'm on the edge of my seat. What do women want most? This riddle. King Arthur has to find it. So he goes out. He had this knight, Gawain. Gawain and him journeyed ends of the kingdom, interviewing women after women. What do women want most? Seeking for the answer to this. Time was getting close. All of the answers that were coming in, that they were discovering, there was no consistency. There was no one thread. That was it. And one day on the path in front of him was a crone, this old, hunched over, craggy crone. And she said to King Arthur, I have the answer to your riddle. And King Arthur said, what is it? And she said, I have a price. And he said, what is it? And her answer was, give me Gawain, your young, handsome, gallant knight who is so devoted to you, his hand in marriage. King Arthur was like, girl, woman, crone, hag lady. Again, this is not exactly how it was written. Okay, King Arthur myth doesn't call her a hag lady. But he said, okay, I can't promise for him. And I can only imagine what he was thinking, you know. And so he goes back, tells Gawain he met this crone who had the answer. And Gawain, before King Arthur's even able to say anything about her request, offers up his own choice. What does she want for the answer? I will even marry her. And so the wedding was planned. And instead of doing it in the morning hours or no, they like this hag requested it needs to be high noon. It's a Knight of the Round Table's wedding, like all the fanfare due to someone of his status. And so the wedding proceeded and the wedding night came, and in the room, all of a sudden he turns around, the knight turns around, and he sees in his room the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. And he's like, whoa, hey, this is my wedding night. This is my bridal chamber. Who are you? What are you doing here? This is not for you. Where's my wife? You know, this old hag that he had married that day. And the story is so beautiful because it goes into how he was a perfect husband. It wasn't like he was like, hiding away from her. He was like celebrating and honoring this day as if she was the most beautiful woman. In that moment, she says, I am your wife. And the Black Knight is my brother, and he cursed me because I wouldn't give him my lands. So now, as my husband, you have the power to choose. Do you want this version of me by day or by night? Now, I mean, again, I'm listening to this.
What would you choose?
Yeah, what would you? I'm listening to this on headphones while I'm cleaning the Airbnb in our basement apartment, right? And I remember stopping dead in my tracks being like, what? My goodness. And thinking, you know, obviously the logic would be like, if she's beautiful by day, everybody knows he's married to this gorgeous being. But at night, then he's sleeping next to the hag.
Doesn't get the freak in the sheets.
Yeah, right? So it's like, what do you do? Anyway, the story is so beautiful. In it, he says, he thinks for a moment and says to her, I can't make that choice for you. What do you desire? And that was the moment that the spell that was put on her was actually broken, because the answer to the riddle that she knew that she delivered, which saved King Arthur's life, was this key. The answer is, what do women want most? It is sovereignty. And he gave her sovereignty in allowing her to choose what her appearance would be at any point in time. From that point forward, she was the beautiful woman she always was. Her true nature, day and night. It set her free. I heard this story and I realized, even then in March, before we went through this portal, I realized I desperately wanted sovereignty. And I didn't know, I was scared of it because I knew that if I had sovereignty, that meant you had to have sovereignty too. And your sovereignty scared the fucking shit out of me because it had caused me so many wounds. But yet you were willing to be beside me. This whole journey, you had never once been like, well, I'm going to go and be with this other woman that I'm interested in because she's messaging me and it's more exciting. None of the women you ever messaged, ever connected with, ever had entanglement with were anything you actually ever wanted to leave me for. And you made that abundantly clear to me. So I knew I had that kind of level of vision anchoring me into this, saying, well, no matter what, he's willing to stick it through with me and we will see. And I realized that with you, I had access to this piece of sovereignty. I got a glimpse of it. I could feel the vibration of it, and I knew it was what I wanted. It took a while. It took journeying. It took mistakes. It took everything.
It was an intense journey because there was so much that we needed to shed. But I'm so glad because, like, thinking about this, you obviously had these beautiful moments where Spirit was teaching you exactly what you needed. And then through my own, like, loving nudges, we'll call them that.
Well, I would say the love part was your commitment. You were committed to actually doing the work and sticking it through in this relationship.
Yeah, for myself too.
Yeah.
Like I was committed to my own healing. And if she was going to slow me down, or if I was going to slow her healing down because I was just a walking trigger, then I was also willing to separate. That's how much I loved her and loved myself. And so as it turned out, of course, when we step through those fear portals, when we are willing to be courageous and have faith in unknowns, then Spirit can guide our life in the most intense ways. And so that's why we're here today. We're sharing this incredibly magical story that we've just started really getting to the juicy parts. And it gets juicier and juicier, actually.
Yeah.
So we will end there. What a beautiful story, and thank you for sharing that, baby.
Yeah, that was
Probably the better one of the better ones that better versions of it I've heard you share.
I've shared it so many times. It is a key component. It was an anchor.
Well, and it's also a deep truth. Women do want the same sovereignty that men have always had, in our society, right? It's like when a man goes and fucks around, he's fine. When a woman does it, she's a slut, right? It's like, why isn't she sovereign? Why can't she do that? So I think this goes into the deep roots of the masculine feminine dynamic in humankind. So anyway, we've charted that territory and we know it. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so we'll be bringing you part 3 and potentially a 4th, because I think once we get into the travels, I already know it's going to open up longer. But hopefully you've had a little bit of a little bit more of a deeper look into some of the magic and some of the deep shadow work that we've had to endure in this healing journey in the magical story of us.
Yeah.
So until next time.
Thank you.
See ya.